We're like a secular stew, only with a bit more roasting. Probably getting a bit more toasted, and it's only us two. And I'm Brently, I bring the crazy, while Benjamin provides the puns. We're not afraid to say it plainly. We're a couple anti-fascist dudes fighting right-wing extremist views. The Progressive House Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Progressive Pals Podcast. I am Brently, and I have to add myself. Why isn't it coming up? I am Brently, and here with me we have Seamus and John from the Freethought Prophet Podcast. How y'all doing?
Really good, Brently, and kudos on that introduction music, man. That is superb. I enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm a punker, man. I love, I
Excellent.
fucking love punk rock. That is my jam.
Sounds good.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. So we were talking a little bit before the record. We were talking about there's all these comedians, and it seems like a lot of the classics that we and I don't know how old you guys are exactly, but we grew up on these classic comedians, right? And we it seems like a lot of them have moved to this. I don't know. They just just targeting trans people because I think they think it's weird, and so they're like, oh man, let's do that. And I think it gets capital. Like when we started with Dave Chappelle, I think Dave Chappelle's gotten very lazy, and he was just like, if I can just say something that's super offensive for right now, no, I'll get all of the marketing for free through all of these different articles and whatnot about the reaction to it. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think you're right generally in terms of kind of current trends. So you mentioned Chappelle, and there's Ricky Gervais and Bill Maher, and I'm sure they're not the only ones who have been making jokes about trans people. Against that, I don't think it's necessarily all comes from a hateful place. There's I'm an Irish person. People make jokes about Irish people drinking too much and getting into fights, and people make jokes about Korean people being bad drivers, and we can go through the list. So I don't think it's necessarily kind of hateful or offensive to mention trans people, and the fact that it's in comedy a lot more nowadays. Well, it's kind of in society a lot more nowadays. So if you're kind of commenting on what's going on in the world, it would be weird if you didn't comment at all on that issue, I think.
Well, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's I don't know. I feel like they're targeting a group that, I think for a long time, because we were just we have this gender binary so ingrained, in our heads, or so ingrained in our society that is, folks that are older and whatnot have a really hard time wrapping their head around this non-binary kind of gender thing, this gender fluidity type of thing, which, to be honest, I get confused by it too. I'm not trans, so I can't really speak on it as well as I'd love to, but I try to defend, their rights as often as I possibly can, and try to be as supportive as I can.
Sure.
Even if I don't fully completely comprehend everything about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like they are targeting them unfairly, and I feel like as if of all the groups, like you just said, like all the groups, um, there's not very many groups that commit suicide at the rate that they do, that the transgender community does, because of people giving them a hard time and harassing them. And I mean, there's targeted turfs like do targeted attacks online where they will just harass and harass and harass,
Yeah,
and that's really fucked up. And then then
that's
you also
appalling.
got they can't even really watch a comedy special without being like, great, now we're the butt of the fucking joke here too, So I mean,
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm interested. That's how it lands on your ear, Brently. So the way that or like maybe we're not watching the same material, but when I watched Ricky Gervais recently, or we mentioned Chappelle or Bill Maher, my understanding of where they're coming from is that they would be just as appalled by all of that abuse as you are. They would be as keen for trans people to have their full human rights as everyone else. They don't want to discriminate against anyone. They don't want anyone to be made to feel bad. But at the same time, if Ricky Gervais makes a joke about Caitlyn Jenner being a bad driver or whatever that joke was. I can't remember that joke, but whatever it was, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the alternative to that is. If the alternative is you can't make a joke with trans people in it, I mean, a lot of the trans people that we've talked to in our podcast would be offended by that. I mean, that would sound to them like, well, you're just giving us a pat on the head, like we in an enormously patronizing and condescending way, like somehow they can't take a joke. Yeah,
you have had you've had trans folks on your podcast say that they said that that people feel like they can't take a joke because of the reactions to some of these comedians.
Well, we've had trans people on the podcast. I think it's fair to say, Seamus, who are pretty fierce and can hold their own in any argument, and would have no problem telling anyone to F off if they thought that was appropriate. So that I don't think they would see themselves as some kind of special wallflower that can participate in the same kind of conversations as everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think though the problem is it depends upon the joke. First off, I mean, if you're gonna make a joke, it's got to be funny. And I think the other problem is some of these aren't funny. I mean, Rick, some of Ricky's things was okay. To me, Chappelle's was, it just like felt like he was just bitching. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like he was just pissed off. And I like Dave, and I thought the special, like the whole special was good. I mean, there was good parts, but I just felt like he was bitching more than actually having a go. Like Ricky was generally trying to have a go. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, whether or not you liked or didn't like his jokes, I think they were well intended.
There were at least punchlines.
Yes,
there were punchlines.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Like I will give him that. That's it. I mean, like I felt like a lot of his jokes were inappropriate, but like when it comes to the Dave Chappelle one, they weren't even fucking jokes, man.
Yeah,
it was just a guy being a dick.
Yeah, I mean, I understood. Like I understood where he was coming from on parts of it. You know what I mean? And you could have these arguments, about whether or not. She's not going to say her name, J.K. Rowling, whether or not she's a horrible person. And you can say that without even going down the trans issues, because there's a whole slew of things not to like J.K. Rowling. If you don't like her, and that's fine if you do. If you don't, you know what I mean?
Right.
But, and Bill, to me, him and Bill Maher are kind of, and I don't mean to say that they're on the same page, because I think Dave Chappelle's far more talented and much more funnier than Bill Maher ever was. But I think some of the arguments they were both making on this issues, but specifically, were kind of lazy. And Bill's thing I thought was terrible. I mean, it's not even a fact. A, wasn't funny, and B, to me, it was like he was trying to make a point, and he also debunked his own point when he was trying to make his point.
How do you do that? See, okay,
Yeah.
I was going to talk to you about this because like this is a tactic that I see a lot on the right. Like Tim Pool, he'll like make an argument. Have you seen him do this? He'll like make an argument, like for a particular proposition, and then he'll also make the argument against it, and then just be like, "Am I right?" And everybody's like, "Well,
Yeah, the argument against Stroud was really good.
yeah. Like, do you take sides on things? Like, what's happening here? You know, like, yeah. And I noticed it's like Bill Maher was sort of doing the same thing, and I feel like a lot of them are trying to maybe broaden their audience or something. Like they're trying to get everybody and be like, I see where you're coming from, but I see where you're coming from, and I'm done talking. That's it, bro. I'm not gonna.
Which was the contradiction in Bill Maher's thing?
Well, so he starts out with the graph, right, which is this poll, and he's trying to say, well, why is it that all these people? Well, it's because it's trendy, and it's that's what it is. It's because people just want to pretend that they're trans and all this. And then he later even admits that saying that the fact that LGBT folks are a little bit more accepted now than whenever fucking Biden was born, that maybe that has to do with the numbers going up a little bit, and I would think that would have a lot more to do it, than just because somebody wanted to trend. So.
But to my mind, he said both of those things, and those are two different explanations for the same numbers, the same graph that you referred to, Seamus. But to my mind,
he really was trying. I mean, his whole. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, to me, it felt like the whole monologue or whatever you want to say was to just say that a lot of it's just because kids are rebellion and kids just want to be against authority. And I do know that happens. I've seen it because I've worked in schools. I've been around kids. Oh, you know what I mean? Yeah, that happens, but it's not to the freaking extreme that he's saying. That's my problem with it.
The way. Maybe, again, this is kind of the way sometimes the same words land differently on different people's ears. The way it landed on my ear was he was saying there's two different things going on. Of course, when society becomes less bigoted and less prejudicial against people who are different, then people who are different are more likely to express that. That's definitely a thing. But it's also a thing that, I mean, when there's, I think it's a well-known issue now when there's like a teen suicide. Sometimes it comes in, they come in clusters, and people very carefully deal with one now so as not to encourage this kind of social contagion effect. And for conditions like bulimia and eating disorders, there's a social contagion effect too. So when you get kind of a young teen with one of those conditions and they're arranging treatments, the first thing they do is separate them from the peer group. When you have bulimia patients in an institution and they're getting the care that they need, the first thing to do is to say, right, separate them from the other bulimia patients because of this kind of social contagion effect. So, I mean, both things can be true. It can be true both that there's some kind of social contagion effect, and also that the numbers are in part also explained by because society becomes less bigoted, then people are more likely to express their differences.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It can be this and that. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other. But the argument that he was kind of making was that the dominant reason was because it's a fad, and that was like the main thing. Like it was just, which I think is weird. Like, why would it be a fad to make yourself more vulnerable? Like it's like with what you're talking about. You're right about like the eating disorders and things like that. But there's a very specific reason for that. It's because the cool kids are are cheerleaders and stuff, right? Like trans folks, are generally, mistreated, right from the get-go, and it'd be weird. I just feel like it's odd to be like, oh no, it's a fad to want to be somebody who gets bullied more. Well, by what I mean. I feel like that's odd.
I think
right.
Well, I don't think it's that odd. Firstly, it's not necessarily the case that things that are social contagion are all positive. I mean, we started off talking about suicides happening in
Yeah.
clusters.
Sure.
And the other thing, I don't necessarily think that it's the case that LGBT people from that community are treated overall in the same negative way that they used to be. Of course, that's not to say that homophobia doesn't exist, that transphobia doesn't exist. It's not to say that those people don't suffer appalling abuse, which is obviously the case. But what we can say is, I mean, for example, there was that young kid who came out as trans in the famous Elizabeth Warren clip, and immediately there's a big round of applause. And also, what's the kind of the big telling factor to me is in that graph that Bill Maher was showing with the number of people identify as LGBTQ going way up. The biggest component of that is the Q component, and the biggest component within the Q are people who are opposite sex attracted but refer to themselves as queer. So, if you're a man who's only attracted to women, or if you're a woman who's only attracted to men, like 10 years ago, you were considered just a boring heterosexual person, and that was the end of it. But now you can be queer if you want for various different reasons, which is absolutely fine. I've got no objection to that. But I mean, those numbers wouldn't be going up and up and up if all those people were all getting beaten up in the street every weekend.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're absolutely right, because it could be all explained, like those numbers going up could be completely explained simply by the fact that we have broadened the definition of what queer means, which a lot of times includes people like kinksters. You know what I mean? Like, and
which is fine. I have no objection to that at all.
Right. They don't really like to have that. In there, because it kind of lends credence to the false assumption that it's that they get so sex crazy that now they're trans or whatever, you know what I mean, which is not the case at all, you know what I mean. But they're still like different, right? And it's okay to say that you're queer or whatever. I think like I said, I identify as queer. I'm pansexual, so I'm passing, so I don't have like half the problems that most people have. But it's interesting to see how relationships change when I do tell people that, especially with certain,
Okay, I'm out of here. No.
Well, the thing, the kind of complaint that I had with Bill Maher's thing, and it's kind of more of a question than anything else. So you were saying, Brently, he seemed to be arguing that all these numbers are almost entirely explained by this kind of social contagion effect. What I took him to be arguing was that both things are true. It's both that people who were previously in the closet are no longer, and that's a good thing. And also that there's some component of it which might be this kind of social contagion effect. But when you turn up at the doctor's office, you have this gender affirming thing where everyone has to be told, yeah, you're right, you're the opposite sex, proceed directly to the hormones. And what he was saying was, well, like my youngest are 12, I'll have to keep my voice down, but 12-year-olds are idiots. So, his point seemed to be that, people turn up, young kids turn up and say these things, and sometimes they just haven't a clue what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I understand that, and I think that but he also is saying that a lot of the treatments, like the puberty blockers and whatnot, that are dangerous, which I wish he would provided more, evidence of like where he's getting that, because like everything that I've seen is we've already been using those blockers for other issues. And then it was never a problem for kids, we used them for kids, and then it was never a problem, but all of a sudden that now trans, kids are using them. just to give them a break, just be like, hey, let's just hold off, so because like you said, they're idiots, right? Give them a chance to like figure out, who they are and like what's going on and if this is a fad or not or whatever, and that's what those puberty blockers are for, and he made it like, oh no, if if you do that, you're not going to have a fucking skeleton, and of course, I mean, that's tongue in cheek, but I mean, it's still like saying this is really bad for you, you know.
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm just like,
Well,
dude,
that's
they use them
then
for
you're
other
into
things.
you're into the battle of the peer-reviewed articles, then, aren't you? Because I mean, I've seen people make arguments on both sides of that, and they both have lots of footnotes with references to Google Scholar papers and all the rest. So my suspicion is, if you want a paper by a reputable scientist that says this is entirely reversible and it's totally benign, you can find loads of papers that say that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want a paper that says this is not reversible, it's going to stunt your sexual development, it's going to stunt your bone density and all of those things, you can find papers to say that too. And yeah, I just find myself totally unqualified to
I know.
provide the answer there.
I'd have to. I do have a friend, Doctor. What is it? It's like becoming a Dr. Ben. Like they're in school, for becoming a doctor.
Pre-med, intern.
Pre-med. Yeah, I think they're pre-med at this point. But I think they would have a lot better. I'm gonna have to talk to them about it. Like I said, like I'm not an expert on this field at all. Like I wish that I had had someone that like a trans person that could come on and explain this a bit more thoroughly. And
I mean, the other thing with his argument, though, I mean, he tries to, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but to me, it feels like that he's trying to make that the and again, this is like lazy Fox News right wing talking points that we go to the extreme of what is out there and try to make it the norm, right? There's not a lot of 9-year-olds being force fed beta blockers or hormone pills and all this shit. It's not really happening as much as he tried to let on there. And then the one joke he tries to make with about what this isn't happening in Youngstown, Ohio, as much as it in California. So what, we're shaming you in California or something? Well, there's a reason why California leads the way in a lot of those, because there's less restrictive laws against trans folks.
Right.
There's still laws on the books in many states where medical people can refuse to give treatments at all to trans folks just because they're trans, which is fucking insane.
So you're absolutely right. It really depends where you're at. And he even tried, like you said, like he tried to address that, but he was like, so in this state, it's for this reason. In that state, it's for a different reason. Like you said, right? But it's like, go to fucking Alabama, and see if you don't get, if you get the same treatment, because like they even have like bathroom laws where you can't use like the bathroom, in certain areas. And that's got to be terrifying for a trans woman to be like trying to drive through Alabama and, figure out where to do a pit stop without, possibly getting attacked because they have to go into the bathroom that's the opposite of their gender identity. Because we do actually have data for that. We don't really have much data when it comes to the claims of the right of them harming cisgendered women, whatever, and all this rape and all this stuff, which that was another thing that Ricky Gervais, I think, I don't know. I personally have topics that I'm just like, don't do rape jokes, man. Like, and that's just kind of my, like, I mean, take like, I just don't like it. I don't think that they're funny and whatnot. And I think it's a lot more that just like, that they utilize the fact that half of comedy is surprise, right? And so when they make jokes like that, it's like just like, whoa, I can't believe he just fucking actually said that, which I feel like is pretty. I feel like that's shitty comedy, in my opinion. But
I think there's maybe it's a UK thing. I don't know if this is the case in the States, but I think in the UK there's been a number of cases of male rapists who were convicted for rape, got long sentences, went to jail, self-identified as female, were transferred into the female prison and raped several women in the female prison.
Oh
I
wow,
think
Really?
that happened several times in the UK. Yeah.
Huh.
that's crazy.
I'd never heard of that one. Yeah, I'd have to look into that happening because yeah, I mean that's not clearly. I mean that's not good. Like I feel like you need to be able to just be like, oh, I just
But
decided, you know,
but
and
why?
now I'm.
But then if you're I'm not putting words in any of your mouths, folks, but if we consider one of the proponents of self ID, which is as soon as I say I'm a woman, and I'm treated as a woman without any, hormones or surgery or whatever happens to be, then how do you argue against that? I mean,
Well,
if
okay.
that's your position, aren't you in favor of taking the rapist from the male prison and putting them in the female prison?
No, I feel like you'd need to have like other like you'd have to already be, you know, trans like you know what I mean? Like it's the same thing like with sports and stuff like that. Like I feel like, you know, nobody's just going, "Oh, I'm a girl now," you know, and so I'm just going to go in and start competing without any like hormones or anything like that, you know, and just completely just decided like
But on
yesterday,
the
you know.
so
I
there's two sides to that. The first side is on the self ID bit. I mean that's exactly what they're doing. So as I understand it, the nature of the controversy at the minute is that um, one side of the debate supports this idea of self ID. As soon as a bloke says, "Right, I'm now a woman," they're a woman, and that's the end of it. And actually, it's bigotry to ask that person, "Have you had any hormone treatment? Have you had any
Wow.
psychological treatment? Have you had any surgery?" You're not even allowed to ask that. That makes you a bigot if you ask that.
okay.
And then in the sports area, I think you're exactly right, Brently. A lot of the sports have rules about testosterone levels and things like that. But
Right.
the issue is, if you've gone through male puberty and have all the advantages that gives you athletically, and then you go through whatever it is, 2 years or whatever of hormone treatment, some of the advantages of the male puberty still stick with you. So you still have an advantage, but yeah, personally, I find that the sports one really difficult. You know, it just seems mean to exclude the trans women, but I also have sympathy. Um, I also have sympathy for the people who are excluded on the basis that the trans woman is a lap and a half ahead in the race. So yeah, I think that's a difficult one. I don't know what the answer is to that one.
I honestly don't either. I think that you know, I think there is like a new, like you said, like I don't think we should just do a full on ban. You know, it's insane to me. You know, like okay, trans people they just can't compete. You know, um, I think that's nuts to do that. At the same time, though, I think like you said, like we need some rules surrounding these sorts of things. And from what I understand, like from what I've heard on like I listened to this show. It's a call-in show called the Transatlantic call it, you know, it's like a call-in show, and it's like done by the line. And that's basically what they were saying. They're like, you know, most of the time, like they're, you know, they have to have already been transitioned for so long before they can, you know, compete, you know, against cisgender women.
I think that's true in sports, yeah, and so some sports do ban it completely. I think I follow rugby. I know it's not a huge sport in the States, but in rugby they take the view that it's dangerous. Rugby is kind of like American football in that the typical shape of the player at the line of scrimmage isn't the same as the typical shape of a wide receiver. And maybe if you put a wide receiver in the line of scrimmage, they're likely to get hurt. And something similar is the case in rugby. So before the game starts, you have to designate these are my players who are going to be in the scrum, and you can't put anyone else in the scrum because they might get hurt because they're just not big enough.
Right. Okay.
So then, in that context,
I mean, shit. If I, as a cisgendered man, I mean, I am like I say, I am pansexual, but that has nothing to do with this. Like, if I were to, I'd be in danger. Okay, playing rugby, that game is fucking crazy.
Yeah, there's some brutal fuckers in that game, man. There's some big guys.
I'd be in danger if I had to run half the length of the field, even if nobody was attacking me. I would still be in danger.
Exactly. Right. So yeah, I
got a question though, real quick about the UK store at the jail. I mean, it also kind of blows my mind though that you have a sexual offender. That should be the flag. I mean, put the sex offenders in one pod. I mean, that's something that they've tried to do even in prisons here. And actually, that's more for the protection of the sex offenders, especially if they've diddled children.
Yeah, because they get the fuck. I mean, they get beat up and shit. Because people that like in prisons and everything, they have like this hierarchy, kind of like, hey, I'm not so bad. I just robbed a bank and I didn't even hurt anybody, whatever. Right?
Hey,
but
you will not hear me complain about child molesters getting fucked with in prison. Okay, I am all for that all day long. You know what I mean? So that's a hill I'm not gonna. I have no problem dying on. Okay,
but, I mean, I understand why you come from that, but I think at the same time it is a good idea, just because it also could create because people can be mistaken. You know what I mean? Like people can think that somebody has done something that they didn't actually do.
Yeah.
And then they get, beat. So it's like probably is a good idea just to keep them by themselves, like just keep them away from the rest of the, like, what do they call Gen Pop or whatever, from Sons of Anarchy. That's the only reason I know that. But yeah, and so
as good as education as any. The way that argument goes, and again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but the way the argument goes is, well, I'm sure you can imagine, if you have someone who says they're a trans woman, and then you're going to give them hoops to jump through to say, okay, you have to go and talk to this doctor, and you have to do the following, and maybe there's treatments mandated, or maybe there's a waiting period to say, you're going to live your life like this for so long, or whatever it happens to be. Kind of putting all those hoops in the way of a trans person can be presented as further traumatizing someone who's already suffering some kind of trauma. So, you two guys are the bigots, is what I'm saying here.
I thought that they already I thought that was like just common practice, especially for any types of surgeries. You have to do these certain, like you said, like a waiting period. You have to talk to a mental health professional. You have to do all these different things before you can, do those types of surgeries. From what I understand, now I could be mistaken. But I thought that was just commonplace, for that.
But as you say, there's one issue. What hoops do you have to jump through before you can get surgery? And I don't know what the answer to that is, and I think it becomes particularly complicated for someone under 18. What do their parents get to decide for them? But that's one issue. What do you have to do before you get surgery? The other issue is, what do you have to do just before you're recognized as being of the opposite sex? So if all you want to do, for example, is change your passport or change your birth certificate or have the state recognize that you're now a different sex, is it required for you to jump through a bunch of hoops to get that far? Does a doctor have to sign off on that? So this is where this comes. These self-ID stuff comes in. The self-ID idea being, if I say I'm a woman, and that's the end of it, and nobody can tell me I'm not.
Right. And I think like as far as like society goes, like as a social, like I would treat them immediately
Sure.
as
Totally agree. Yeah.
as far as like other things go, other like aspects of like legal system type stuff, I think that have to like be it'd have to be put through the legal system and be voted on and all these things like that. But I feel like we should always consider trans folks, as just any other human right type of issue. I believe personally. So and that was kind of like Ricky Gervais's thing at the end. He was like, I believe that trans rights are human rights, and so we should, which again, like was another what sort of like one of those things. Like as long as I say this, then it gets me out of trouble for saying all of that type of stuff, right? Sort of like what Trump would always do.
I don't know. I mean, that's a question of sincerity, though. I mean, I think he was sincere in that.
Oh, I'm sure
I really do. I don't think he's he's trying to be shitty to trans folks, even if you want to say that his jokes were or weren't. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think the argument, and he tried to address it, and you can, again, decide whether or not he did it right about the whole punching up and punching down thing. Yeah, it would be, I'm sure he would have got a lot further in having jokes where he made it go at trans folks, but then also made it go at the folks that were against trans folks, maybe? You know what I mean? Like had that other kind of like, against the turfs or whatever you want to say. Maybe that would have been less of an issue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because again, I think everything he did was sincere. He was just trying to have a go. Whether or not how funny it was, that's another, So.
And the punching up and that was the other kind of weird part of that one too, was like he keeps talking about how he's a rich person. And so like
Chappelle does that too.
Right. And again, yes.
So Chappelle's kind of a dick about it, but that's a whole other.
Yeah. So. Oh my God. Is he ever? I mean, especially since he came out with that housing thing, that really pissed me off. Oh my God. I'm just like, really, man? Like you're that? So you actually are a shitty person? Like that's just all that is there? Huh?
Well, I guess okay. So there was two sides to that because I found out this afterwards too because I had the same reaction that you are expressing, which is basically that housing development was only doing that because it was kind of like they had to do it, as in they had to make this like little area for low income folks there. And his spokesman says that his argument was that wasn't enough. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. But what I did think was kind of shitty was that the whole, you're making me wait in line like everybody else. I'm Dave fucking Chappelle. It's like, come on, dude.
Jeez Louise. That's right. I just feel like he's getting so entitled, Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of this boils down to as far as like comedy goes, like being like they feel like they're entitled to have everybody like their comedy, and when people respond, online, which I mean, everybody's going to do, they're all going to do it. There's nothing we can do about this. People are going to respond to everything, no matter what and the more attention it gets, the more people will respond. And then if the people that pay them their money, the money, are going to see those responses. And if enough people, hate it or whatever, then they're going to get in some sort of trouble, get their funding pulled or whatever, it's just sort of going to happen because we have nothing but, I mean, everybody's just has their opinions loudly on the internet, in every way, shape or form,
I mean, again, everybody wants controversy. And if you can, get a little bit of controversy, then you get a little bit of attention. And I still think that that's kind of Bill Maher's game a little bit at this point because he's suddenly finding himself less and less relevant. He absolutely wants to be Joe Rogan right now. He basically, I mean, I don't know if you guys if you saw the first episode that, well, not first, but I think it was not the most recent, but the one before it, where he was on Rogan. And he like practically begged Joe to come on his show because he knew.
Yes, it was embarrassing.
It was terrible.
Oh God, how cringy! So thirsty.
Yeah, I do. So real quick, to one of the things that you were just saying about changing your name and all that stuff. So I did confirm with my son, because whenever he was an adult, he changed his name and changed everything. So he is now, listed as a male and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no, questions about anything. So I don't know if it's just whenever you're, a juvenile that those other things have to come into play, or, but I mean, on his actual license, it doesn't say, anything other than male. So. But,
yeah. And in 99.9% of cases, that's exactly what should happen. And then there's I think it's Karen White, I think is the name of the trans lady who assaulted, who was convicted of rape, changed into the women's prison and assaulted people. So, I mean, kind of tough cases make bad law, isn't that what to say? That it's difficult to build the whole legal framework around a very rare edge case. Against that, it's still worth worrying about. If you're one of those women in the ladies' prison and they're putting a rapist in your cell, you're probably, it's not unreasonable to be concerned, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I can't believe I've never heard it. Like, I really am gonna have to do more looking into that. I just had never heard anything about that.
That was the case that I just assumed he was that Gervais was talking about that particular case when he did that skit.
Maybe.
Oh yeah.
So isn't that what he was saying? It was as if he was talking to someone who had just been raped by a trans woman.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? I just assumed that's the case he was talking about. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think it was sort of like a general. Are you talking about the very beginning where he's like,
I'm talking about the bit. Yeah. What if he just raped me? What if she just raped you? I assumed he was talking about the Karen White case, but maybe not.
Because I think it's just a generalized thing, because that's just their argument. Like the right, that's the argument they make repeatedly. As if a rapist is going to be stymied by a fucking sign over a door. You know what I mean? About the bathrooms.
The bathrooms thing. Yeah, that's completely different from prisons, of course.
Of course, right? Yes, very. That is very.
In Europe, and you've schooled me on this, John. That pretty much because I went to. I didn't attend. I went to Ohio State for a conference, and they had non-gender bathrooms, and that blew my mind. Which I remember telling John it was. I mean, at first that was cool. I was like, okay, wait, whatever. But I had to take a shit, so I'm in there taking a shit, and then a woman comes in, and then I'm afraid to fart.
Yeah,
because my brain's just straight like, oh no, I can't do this.
Right.
But anyway,
Wow.
So whatever.
So it was like a multi-person bathroom that was non. That was not. I'd never heard of that.
The company I work for just refurbed the office, and all the bathrooms went like that. So there's, there is no separation at all. Everyone goes into the same bathroom. I remember
Isn't that kind of the case though in a lot of places in Europe though?
I remember once, this is a long time ago, I went to Sweden to do a work thing, and you get in late at night and you're having a couple of beers before you have to get the head down, go to work the next morning, and I was wandering around that hotel, man, for 15 minutes looking for the gents before I eventually asked someone, and they said, no, there's no ladies and gents, there's just the unisex toilet.
Wow. Yeah.
So then you go in, it's all stalls. There's no urinals, obviously.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I was gonna say, I actually think the way most Starbucks do it, I think is what we should just go to. Like, it's just each one is its own private thing. You can lock it. Because like Seamus is talking about being scared to. I'm like that with other guys in the bathroom. I don't want to be farting my ass off in here.
I don't care about that.
I don't like it. I'm like, how can I do this as quietly as possible?
Let me ask you a different question about the Gervais thing then. So, you guys thought that the trans joke was over the line. What if she raped you or whatever it was, the trans joke. That was the one that you thought, okay, that's a bit too far. But in the same special, he joked about dead babies, about beating up a disabled toddler. He joked about the Holocaust, about racism. He joked about pedophiles being given dwarfs as methadone. He joked about AIDS. He joked about fat people eating their own limbs. But it was the trans joke that was the one that was over the line.
No, I see. To me, all that's over the line. I mean, it's all extremely lazy comedy. That just, like I said, like isolates solely on the fact that surprise is 50% of what makes people laugh, and surprise and shock, like, oh, I can't believe you just fucking said that, because the little people, that thing, I that pissed me off too. There was I mean, it's like not pissed me off, but I'm just like, that's not good comedy, like, you know what I mean, like, and maybe that's the way I'm rated, because I used to do stand up, so a lot of it is I'm rating it as like a comic looking at another comic, or an ex-comic, I guess, looking at another comic. And I shouldn't even give myself that much credit. I tried to be a comic, let me put it. But and so I'm looking at a lot of it just as lazy.
Not enough jokes
terrible.
about giving dwarfs to pedophiles as methadone.
That's rough, man. Like that was
the one when I was looking at it through my fingers. I was going like,
I was like, oh my god, really? Oh, this is just like, I'm so glad I didn't see this live, because I just like be so embarrassed.
There's so I work in computer science. In computer science, there's this thing called the uncanny valley. So you have people try and make these systems which are kind of human-like, but it's really a computer. And what happens is, if it's something that's definitely not human and obviously not human, like C3PO is kind of cute, and it gets more and more human until it's not quite human, until it's very close but not quite, and then people go through this kind of icky phase, the uncanny valley, and it becomes off-putting, and I just don't like it. It's not cute anymore. And then obviously, if you can't tell the difference, everything's fine again. And I think Gervais he's like at the other side of the uncanny valley. Like if anyone else made that dwarf joke, like if anyone would lose their career over that, except Gervais has been doing it for decades and never apologizes, and so nobody bothers criticizing him anymore, hardly. Like I saw lots of criticism of Gervais, but he didn't get, he didn't get the same criticism that Chappelle got, as far as I could make out.
Well, I mean, I think it was completely two different things too. You know what I mean? Like, Ricky made some jokes. Chappelle's whole fucking show was that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like a diatribe about something. And no, actually, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the jokes per se. I just thought some of them were a little. I did laugh at the rape one. I'll be honest. I'm not.
That whole like. And it was like 2 minutes in. That was the other thing too. It was like, wow, you didn't even give us time to warm up here. We're just like already on to trans folks being.
And in the chats, Titan Uranus pointed out about Jimmy Carr making pedo jokes. Jimmy Carr might be the only other person I could think, besides like a Ricky Gervais, that could make some of these jokes, because he's always like that too. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like, it's sort of like the South Park thing, where like, as long as we like go like if we put the line so much farther than where you should, what I mean, ever should, then hey, everything that's not past that line, we're good, right?
Who do you think's funnier, John, Jimmy or Ricky?
I would watch a Ricky special before a Jimmy Carr special, really? even though Jimmy Carr is like, he's incredibly blue, and he's way over the line too. So I'll tell you how far over the line Jimmy Carr is. The only joke of his that I remember from his last special that I watched, which would have been quite a few years ago, the only one I remember is the one that wasn't all that bad. And it stood out for not being all that bad. I remember he did a skit about being in a bar with his mate, and his mate went to the gents to take a whiz, and he picked up his mate's phone, and he had his dad's number in the phone, and he texted to his mate's dad from his mate's phone in the bath, thinking of you.
That's pretty good.
Wait, yeah, he almost got canceled though, right? Because the last episode he had, or last special, he had something about gypsies, and people lost their fucking mind in Europe. So
that's right.
Yeah, because that's it's like, yeah, that's another one of those words that like used to be commonplace, you know, and it's like I said, like just time moves on, you know, and things that weren't appropriate. That's why I'll almost like I actually kind of agree with him in certain areas where he's talking about going way back in the past and looking at things people say and then being like, oh, and then judging them based on today's moral standards. Or something that happened for it.
It's funny you say that, Brently. I was in the car the other day, and the kids had whatever radio station was on the car, and I think I want to say, was it? It might be "Brilliant Disguise" by Bruce Springsteen. There's a line in that, something about the gypsy lied or whatever. But I remember I heard that line, and I immediately thought, nobody would release that song today. I wonder, is that? I mean, there's somebody not taking that off. Like they took off Oliver's Army, didn't they? So, do you know Elvis Costello? You know the song Oliver's Army? No.
No, I'm not sure.
So there's a song called Oliver's Army, and the N words in it. But what he says is he's singing a verse about British soldiers in Belfast. And being a bit trigger happy with the local Catholic population, and some British soldier shoots some person, and they said just another dead white N-word, talking about the kind of local Catholic. So what he's trying to say there is like this particular population is the equivalent of black people in America or whatever it happens to be, but he uses the N-word in the song. He's not trying to denigrate black people. He's not even talking about black people. He's not trying to denigrate anyone, but it's, you know, it's the magic 2 syllables and you can't say those syllables anymore.
No, yeah. Again, like that's just one of those things. You can't, you know, you just can't say it anymore.
Well, like
and it's not like
the Hurricane, the Bob Dylan song. You know, I mean,
is the N word in that?
Yeah, because that's Rufus.
How did I miss all these old songs with the N word? And this is crazy. I had no idea any of this.
You know the song, right, Brent? I mean, it's about
the song.
Hurricane.
Yeah, it's about Rufus.
The boxer.
The boxer that was wrongly convicted of a crime, and the whole song is fucking beautiful, brilliant song by Dylan, where it just basically spells out exactly what happens in a lyrical, musical fashion. And there's a line where to the black folks, he was just a crazy, and that, you know, he says the word.
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember like the first time, and I heard it on the radio. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it's not like one of those songs like my brother is like, hey, did you check? I can't believe they did. You know what I mean? Like one of those. I mean, I heard it on the fucking radio, and I was like, holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. I had no idea. Yeah. I've never. I feel like I have heard that song too, and I'm so bad with lyrics, so I almost have to sit there with, you know, like with the lyrics and like read them as I'm listening to it to like get the lyrics, because I don't know why I feel like the melodies and music and everything, that's more what I listen to.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, how long did I listen to Brown Sugar before I figured out what that was about? You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, seriously, right?
Yeah, that's a good. You know? That's a. I mean, there's a bunch of like.
It's hard to believe that song's okay nowadays. You know, I mean, come on.
Right.
He's just 17, if you know what I mean.
Holy shit! Yeah, that's a fucking crime, man. Like a bad one.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus. That's crazy. That was what, the Beatles?
Yeah.
You know, and
nobody. Then so we got the Dukes of Hazzard you can't watch on network TV, but MASH you can. And one of MASH's characters, I'm afraid to say this, but I'm going to, Spear Chucker Jones is a freaking character in MASH.
Good grief.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. What the fuck?
Good grief.
Why was that not picked up? Like somewhere in the, like you couldn't have come up with a different name for the guy?
Right.
I mean, what the fuck?
any other name will do. Anyone.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Good grief.
Christ.
That's crazy. Yeah. And Dukes of Hazzard, it's like, they got the General Lee. And like a lot of, I was just talking to a guy the other day and he had no idea that's what that, that on that it was racist, the symbol on the car and all that. And, the General Lee.
But I mean, it was like, really, it's really ambiguous. It is there. But I mean, as far as like in the show, I grew up loving that show as a kid. But I mean, I haven't seen it in years, but I really can't recall. Maybe I was just, clueless then and not picking up. But I don't remember anything other than that.
I don't think they were explicit about it. It was just the symbolism.
Yeah, it was there on the car and obviously the name. Hello, but still.
Yeah, and the General Lee, yeah.
But
it's so odd. And it was a black guy I was talking to, and he was like, once I realized that, he's like, I stopped watching it, and he's like, but. He's like, man, I used to love that show. It was fun, just running from the cops. It's just a fun show, But it's like, it's just odd how it's like, but that's the thing about like comedy and about just TV and entertainment in general. Like you got to keep up with what's going on, and I think lately it's become it's a bit more confusing, than it used to be. It used to be real simple, and it was basically written for one demographic. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Now they're trying to kind of like broaden their spectrum. But I mean, even if you go back into like I want to say like the 90s, like if you watch like Commando, like that time, late 80s and 90s, they actually had a lot of inclusion in those movies. And it's odd because it's almost like gone down. It goes down after that, the amount of inclusion, and then now it's exploding back up again.
Well, I mean, you go with that waves. I mean, you think about it. I mean, probably the most progressive show still, I think, and maybe the greatest show, at least here, is All in the Family. You think about it. Think about the things that were addressed in that show that have never been addressed before, even now. But the thing is, because it's still so controversial, that show would not air today. And that's what's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't even know if it can air today, does it? Like, I know the Jeffersons does.
Yeah, like I think Sundance and the like really off the dial cable things. I think Nickelodeon tried to run it, and I think that Nick at Night. And I think
Nick at Night, yeah,
they did it for a bit. They bounced it, even though the ratings were great. I don't know if they got shit for it, and that's why, but they bounced it. So I don't know.
Because he straight up says the N-word quite a bit, doesn't he? Yeah, well,
not a lot, but well, you know what? I don't think he does. I think
he doesn't.
I don't know if he does. I don't remember him actually saying it. I know that it's like referred that he said the word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know that for sure.
It's been so long. I remember when it was on Nick at Night watching it, and of course I was a kid and I was a conservative and, all this stuff. So I was actually like, but he's right about all this stuff, because I was like a right-wing conspiracy theorist conservative. So like I was on Archie's side, even though he was like the bumbling idiot of the show.
Well, yeah, so without that, I won't name names. One member of my family definitely sees the idea that Archie, although he is lovable and somewhat redeemable, he has good qualities, but he is still, the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
Where another member of the family is like, he's speaking for us. And I'm like, no, you're missing the point,
Wow.
Yeah.
That would have been me. That was me.
Yeah. Well, I was somewhat like you too, because I was also very much fundamentalist once upon a time too. So,
Yeah, it's that naivete, from the time. That's why and I still got that's why I was like, I agree with you when it comes to like the looking stuff up from old, back in the day. So I still got my MySpace up from when I was a piece. You know, I mean, I was
Holy shit.
terrible. Remember MySpace?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, mine was terrible. I hated Obama a lot.
I hate Obama too, but from the other side. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's like that is so funny how that works. Because
Right?
yeah, now I'm like, it's I disapprove of like what he did, but that's more because of he wasn't left enough. He was
Yeah,
reaching
well, I mean,
across the aisle too much.
everything he ran on, he lied on, and he went to the other side. He ran as a progressive and was basically a Reaganite. You know, if you look at his policies, he was very much, like he said, an '80s Republican.
Yeah, and it's so true because I mean, and I remember Kevin at Left at the Valley. He always says that he's like, if you go and look up the conservative platform from what did you say, the 80s, 70s? Yeah. It looks like the platform for the left today. Which is so odd. It's crazy.
Sad is what it is.
Yeah, it's wild that we've become this divided. And I think that's like where I'm going to end off real quick is that there's so much more to talk about. Like as far as like doing comedy, like there is we have QAnon people, man. Like, we got all these conspiracy. There's so much shit to make fun of. That's like fine, and it's like, I think they just noticed that if they get that anger attention, that's the most that they're going to get free, publicity from all the websites. And I think that's honestly why they're doing it. I really do. Because that's why Ricky Gervais was getting so mad that they didn't put it out when he wanted them to.
I missed that.
So they held it back for a little bit because of some of the controversy, right? And he's like, but that's what I want. He was like, that's why I need it released now, because this is when it's like the most controversial, which gives us the most clicks, which gives us the most. And it's an unfortunate reality that just, people click things that make them mad. I mean, that's just, where we're at now,
Oh, we all do that.
I can't, I do it. Yeah. And so, I mean, but it's just sad that people capitalize on it, and then it ends up denigrating an entire group. And I don't know, it just gets frustrating.
We're shifting right over here, but my man is from, they've gone more progressive, and basically he lives in the Pope's backyard. That's the Pope's summer home.
Oh,
I mean, what you guys had gay rights before we did. You guys actually have laws that abortion's okay now, right? I mean, what the fuck?
Right. Again, another
and healthcare.
Yeah, and healthcare. Ireland's got like better healthcare, than we do. This is insane. Like, yeah.
So, John, how big is your garden, and how many refugees can you take in? Is the question.
That's me.
Yeah, we're struggling with the number of Ukrainians at the minute. It has to be said.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh no. Really?
Yeah, just struggling to find enough accommodation. So.
I mean, it's great that you're taking them in, honestly, because I mean they need.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to end up putting them in, army barracks and things like that. The army barracks are out of town and out of the way and stuff. So I don't know what'll happen with the accommodation, but yeah, got to make best efforts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is Craggy Island full?
Craggy Island, good grief! You still see people tweeting the pictures of themselves from that house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is in the absolute middle of nowhere. It's very difficult to get to.
Where is
lots
it?
of people make the journey.
Where is that, John?
Yeah.
That's Father Ted. If you didn't know, I don't know if you watched Father Ted.
Oh no.
So from memory, it's not actually. It's on the mainland. It's not on one of the islands. There are a bunch of islands off the west coast that look very like that. But I don't think I think it's on the mainland. Yeah, but just in a pretty remote area.
I have to say, like most of the pictures that I've seen of Ireland, it looks like something out of a fucking dream. Like it's just gorgeous, beautiful and green and blue water.
There are some nice parts, yes, but the weather can be a bit depressing. We complain about the weather, but so I had in my job, I had a customer in Canada. I went to Toronto a lot, and our winters aren't nearly as cold as Toronto or where Seamus is, and our summers aren't as warm either. So I think based on the latitude where we are, like we're further north than Moscow. I think we're on a similar latitude as Toronto, so it should be minus 20 in the winter. But I mean, we rarely get snow because of the Gulf Stream or whatever it is. Most winters there's no snow at all. There might be a bit of frost in the mornings, and then in the summer,
weird.
In the summer,
and it's a winter advisory if there's a frost.
Your pipes explode like Texas, or no?
No, Seamus is right. If there's 2 inches of snow, the schools close and the whole country is in panic stations. And then in the summer, we wouldn't get what's 30 degrees in Fahrenheit. We use Celsius here, but it's very, very rarely
below freezing.
Degrees. Yeah. So, like if it was when it's above 20, then we go to the beach. That's a great day, but it rarely gets to 30.
Oh, okay. You're saying in Celsius, like what in Celsius? Yeah,
what's 30 in let me look that up right now.
I can never figure it out,
isn't it?
70? I think it's probably around 65, 70. That's what I'm thinking.
86. Right. So we wouldn't really get to 80 Fahrenheit. That it would be if it was 80 Fahrenheit in Ireland, that would be the main item on the news. That would be.
This sounds like paradise to me because I don't.
I was gonna say I'm in Florida, man. It's 86 right now. Like that's like I'm pretty sure that's the temperature. Of course, it's humid and feels like you hit a wall of water the second you walk out of the door. But, hey, thank you guys so much for coming on. We're gonna have to definitely maybe have some more conversation.
That was a lot of fun, Brently. It's fun to talk about a question that I don't know all the answers to. I feel like we touched on a lot of topics where I was thinking, I really don't know what the answer to this one is. So there you go.
Me too. Honestly, I totally agree with you, and I don't think, and it's weird too. Is like YouTubers, especially atheist, skeptical YouTubers. It's like we almost have to pretend like we know all this stuff, which is completely the opposite of what skeptics are. Right?
Sure.
Yes.
Which drives me nuts. That's why I try so hard to be like honest and just be like, look, I don't know everything. I get stuff wrong every day. So the 2 week ago me was an idiot. You know what I mean? So I'm learning constantly. And doing my best, and that's all of us. That's all we're all doing. We're all just doing our best.
For sure.
But thanks again for coming on. We'll definitely have to come up with some other topics and have some more of these because I think it went really well. Because like I didn't want to do like a straight up debate, right? Because I don't like that. I like having a conversation from different angles, and especially like you said about things that maybe I don't even know about. And that way, hope maybe from the comments and stuff like that, or this getting out, and other people covering it, they can give the answers, that are a bit more informed on these sorts of things. But I think
if you were to come on here and say Lewis Hamilton's a god, and something like that, then John would be all over you because he fucking hates Lewis Hamilton.
Oh no,
he drives the wrong car. Unfortunately, we just had our first Grand Prix in Florida this year, not too long ago. So. Yes, unfortunately, Brently, I'm a Ferrari fan, and we've been a long way behind for a few years, but more competitive this year. So fingers crossed.
Right? Yeah, we actually. It's funny because and it's a lot of the people that come here. I'm in like St. Petersburg area, and they actually do a Grand Prix that goes like around the city.
Oh yeah,
and like it's so funny to hear all these people. Like I'm in a St. Pete group, on Facebook, and they're like, "What the fuck is all this fucking noise? I'm losing my mind." I'm like, "Dude, it happens every year. It'll be done in like a week. Don't worry about it." Jeez Louise, like
that's great.
All right, y'all. Well, we're gonna do our little closeout song, and thanks again. Oh, plug your shit, guys. I'm sorry. Totally. Well, tell us a bit about the Freethought Prophet.
Okay,
where they can find it.
I'll go first because Seamus took one step back when you said that there. So we
I
just
saw him wince. Yeah.
we changed format recently, actually.
Mhm.
So we used to mostly do pre-record episodes and put one out a week. And I think the reason we started doing it that way is because we aimed to get a bunch of well-known folks on to begin with. Sometimes they're a bit wary of weird Irish people who contact them and ask them to come on a podcast. They think, maybe I'm getting set up here for an ambush. So we used to say, look, we can clip out everything you want before it's published and blah, 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 blah. And we did interviews. We had Christ on a few times, and Sean Carroll, and Michael Shermer, and Seth Andrews, and that was all very fun. But I think Seamus agrees with me that we just don't care about that anymore. We just go and talk shit and have fun about whatever's in the news now. So we put it out live once every 2 weeks, and once every 2 weeks I think is just about right, so that if it's once every week, maybe it's a slow news week and you haven't that much to talk about. If it's once every month, I'll be missing it too much. So once every 2 weeks looks like about the right balance.
Yeah, that's how we were doing our show, at first, and then we did once a week for a while, and then now we haven't been on for about 3 weeks. So this is actually our return. So I do appreciate y'all coming on for our triumphant return.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
All right. Well, you all have a great evening. All right, and I'm gonna play.
You too. Take care, man.
All right, ready?
Take it easy, guys.
Still, only with a bit more roasting, probably getting a bit more toasted, and it's only us two. And I'm Brently, I bring the crazy, while Benjamin provides the puns. We're not afraid to say it plainly. We're a couple anti-fascist dudes.